Welcome to the CRS Elevation Certificate Training Series on how to correct an elevation certificate, specifically how to do it for CRS purposes. This is a companion video to the series of 9 videos we have that cover how to fill out all sections of the elevation certificate. It is best to view this video after you have seen the other 6 videos on how to fill out each section of the EC, so that you have the basic understanding of what each section captures, how and why it's used, and how to make sure they are complete and correct. In the NFIP, and as mandated in the CRS, it is the community's responsibility to ensure that the certificates it maintains have been completed correctly by the surveyor. Certificates must be proofread and corrected if errors or omissions are found. Although the surveyed elevations are likely to be correct, it is not unusual for surveyors to leave some entries blank, enter the wrong firm information, or pick the wrong diagram number. Since you will inevitably run into some forms you'll have to correct, let's look at the proper ways to correct elevation certificates. In no cases should anybody other than the certifier be writing on the form, other than in sections G, H, or I. In some states, it is actually state law that you cannot write on the form. Be sure to know your state law as it relates to this, but generally speaking, don't write on the form to correct it. Permit numbers or file numbers can be written on the form as long as they do not block or confuse any information on the form itself. If you as the local floodplain administrator made the corrections, the corrected ECs should always be submitted back to the certifier and the building owner or developer so that everyone has a correct copy. The building owner should take it to their insurance agent and see if it improves their rating, and it serves as a training of sorts for the certifier who filled it out wrong initially. We'd like to start by strongly encouraging that if you are handing out an elevation certificate to a homeowner or builder, to fill out as much of sections A and B yourself that you can. That way you know at least those fields will be correct. This allows the applicant or surveyor to focus on completing this information in section C instead of trying to find the correct map information or other items on the form. This has been shown to reduce many of the more common errors that we see. FEMA allows various ways to correct an EC. The first option is to have the surveyor produce a new form. This should always be done when an elevation given on the form or something else in section C or D is one of the errors. You can always return the EC to the surveyor or the homeowner or developer. Then, show them the mistake that was made and have them provide a new EC. This is the cleanest way to handle mistakes. Another clean way to get a correct EC is to have a surveyor or engineer on your community staff produce an EC themselves. This way, you can have more control on how the form is filled out. Or, you can hire this out to a local surveyor on contract with the community. In essence, you would need to get another licensed professional to create a new EC for the property owner. Let's go through a quick example of when you would have the surveyor resubmit a corrected EC or create a new one in-house. Say you have inaccurate or incomplete information in section C as it relates to datums and elevations. You see in this situation, the surveyor left off the mandatory elevations for the bottom floor and the lowest adjacent grade. So, the best way to handle this is to return it to the surveyor and request a new certificate. Ideally, the surveyor adds the missing information and provides you with a new EC. Another possibility if you have difficulty getting a surveyor to produce a new corrected form is to have an engineer or surveyor on your community staff produce a new EC. If you have this capability in your community, this may be a much quicker option. If you cannot get a surveyor to complete a new EC, you'll have to try another option. Another option is to use the memo of correction form. You can use this if something is missing or wrong in section A or B or C1. You can get this form on crsresources.org. This should not be done for ECs with missing or wrong elevations. The official term is the memo of review for correctness and completion, but we generally call it the memo of correction for short. The local floodplain administrator should be the one to fill out and sign this form. When using this form, you must fill in the address that matched the EC you are correcting. Then, write in only what you are changing. Lastly, be sure to fill out all the contact information at the bottom of the form and sign and date. No corrections can be accepted unless the local official signs and dates the correction form. Notice that you can change C1 on this form as well. Sometimes surveyors submit the form without this marked, and sometimes surveyors don't completely understand if it's finished construction or not. So this is on the form for the local official to correct if needed. In addition, you should include comments that explain all changes. You see in this example, the floodplain administrator explained their changes. The community number was corrected, the map and panel number were corrected, and an explanation that C1 was not marked initially by the surveyor. This memo should be attached to the back of the EC you are correcting and should be given to the surveyor and the homeowner, builder, or developer so that they have a complete and accurate EC, which they can give to their insurance agent to get the correct rating. One thing you may be wondering is whether you can fill in A8 or A9. Since these are measurements, shouldn't they only be filled out by the certifier of the form? Like we mentioned before, if you can get the surveyor to change the EC and provide corrections in these fields, that is the best option. If they are unwilling or unable to change their form, there is an alternative. Based on permit drawings and plans, you may be able to determine A8A and A9A, the square footage of the enclosure or attached garage. If not, you could go to the building and measure them yourself, or use your permit records if they are accurate. For the number of openings and whether they are on two different sides of the enclosure or garage, you can go to the building in question and visually inspect and measure them. To know whether the openings used were engineered or non-engineered, you should review your permit records or contact the property owner or builder to make sure you are correct. If there are engineered openings used in the foundation, you'll need to know exactly what make and model were used so that you can provide the calculations required in C through F and attach the proper engineered opening certificate to the form as well. If you had to attach the engineered opening certificate, this would be something you'd want to mark in the comments section. Now let's cover the last way to make corrections. This is by the local floodplain administrator's use of Section G. Generally speaking, the datums and elevations in Section C should only be corrected by the certifier of the document. However, in certain circumstances, even the floodplain administrator can make changes. Section G is where this can be done. So, let's take a look at this part of the form. If you have a situation where you have elevation and datum information that was signed and sealed by a licensed surveyor, engineer, or architect who is authorized by law to certify elevation information, then you can take the information in that document and transfer it to Section C. This is when you would mark G1 on the form. You can fill out Section C and mark G1 either with missing or incorrect elevations, or if the EC the surveyor submitted was on an outdated form. Attach the old form that the surveyor gave you and then fill out all appropriate sections of the new form and attach the outdated form to the new form. Then, make sure you provide your name and title and sign and date in Section G. One special situation though. If you are the local floodplain administrator and also a licensed surveyor, engineer, or architect, you must sign and seal Section D. Also know that the local floodplain administrator can fill out Sections E and F for a building in an AO zone or an A zone without the BFE determined. If you did this, you will need to mark G2. And then, as always, provide your name and title, then sign and date at the bottom of Section G. The main thing you can use Section G for when trying to correct an EC is by checking G3 and then using the comment section at the end. If you need to change something other than elevations or datums, instead of crossing it out on the form and writing in the right information, use the comment section and explain what needs to be changed. An example comment is, A7 should be 7 instead of 6. Or, if the surveyor got the map and panel number wrong, you can explain what the correct entry should have been for B4. Or maybe, if you know that the lowest machinery or equipment servicing the building is the AC unit outside, you can add that here if the surveyor didn't do it in the comments area of Section D. Just remember that anytime you write anything in Section G, you must fill out the contact information fields and sign and date it. This lets you and anybody else know later on who reviewed this and when. Now that we've seen the various ways to correct the EC and when you might use each way, let's provide real-life situations by looking at our top 10 EC errors and then seeing how we would correct each one. The number in the percent ECs column show the percentage of all ECs we looked at in 2023 that showed this error. The same errors generally stay on the top 10 list each year. There are many different situations that may warrant a correction by the local official. There are also many ways to make the correction, and the decision of which way to correct the EC may also hinge on how many ECs you have to correct and whether they are all from the same surveyor. Let's start with the most common error we saw in 2023, mismatched or missing datums. The usual problem here is that the datums from the firm in B11 or from the surveyor in C2 were either missing or they don't match, and no conversion rate was given to correlate the different datums. You can provide the correct datum in B11 either by using Section G or with a correction memo, but the datum in Section C should always come from the surveyor. The second most common error we see is Sections C and E elevations not filled out correctly. Typically, local officials should return it to the surveyor for Section C elevations and return it to the property owner for Section E if they were the one that filled out the elevations in Section E. Then they would have them redo the form. Another option is to provide your own elevations from an in-house professional or hire a professional to do it. The next common error we see is having the wrong diagram number entered in A7. You can usually tell this is wrong by either knowing exactly what type of building is being built or by looking at the elevations in Section C and seeing that they don't match with the building diagram given in A7. For example, if the elevation for C2A, the bottom floor, is below the elevation for C2F, the lowest adjacent grade, then you know the building is something like a basement, and you are dealing with either a diagram 2A, 2B, 4, or 9. If the diagram given in A7 is something other than those 4 possibilities, then you know you have a problem. To fix this, you would confirm the correct diagram number, then figure out which correction method is best or easiest for the situation. You may want to contact the surveyor first to see if they will change it. If not, you can easily change it with either the memo of correction or by providing a comment in Section G explaining what the corrected building diagram is. The next errors we want to talk about are easily corrected by the local official. They are the map and panel errors, the wrong address, and wrong community name. Since these fields are retrieved from the firm, or just an address error, using the memo of correction works easily for these. You could also do it by filling out Section G and providing the correct information in your comments. The next error is not attaching the engineered opening certificate. You'll usually have to get this from the surveyor, but a new form isn't needed for just this. Just get the correct certificate and attach it to the form yourself. Make sure the homeowner has the certificate as well in case they need to go to the insurance agent to get a policy. Next, we see quite a few certification date errors. Sometimes they are from not dating the form. In this case, you'll need the certifier to redo their form. Other times, it's due to using an outdated form. When this is the case, you can either get the surveyor to recreate the EC using the current form, or you can attach the outdated form to a new EC. Then mark G1 on the form and sign and date section G on the new form or current form. Be sure to fill out the rest of the form as well, including sections A and B. New errors we are commonly seeing already with the new forms revolves around latitude and longitude. Please refer surveyors to the EC instructions because it's usually just a formatting issue or them forgetting to mark the datum used. Latitude should always be either a positive number or a number that has an in or north at the beginning or end of the number. Longitude should always either be a negative number or one that has a W for west at the beginning or end of the number. When using decimal degrees, 6 decimal places must be used, and when using degrees, minutes, and seconds, the seconds must always employ at least 2 decimal places. And lastly, a pretty common error is the one for attached garages not filled out correctly. This is something that you should really confer with the surveyor about. It may or may not be an attached garage as defined by FEMA. See our other videos on how to correct an EC Section A and how to correct an EC Section C for more on attached garages. There may be other floor elevations to consider, and it may be confusing as to which one to use. Talk it over with the surveyor and see if they can't create a new EC for you to incorporate any changes that need to be made. If you can't use a surveyor to correct the form, then you may have to use an in-house surveyor or hire one to shoot new elevations. If the root of the issue is a diagram number problem, or maybe it's really not an attached garage, you could use the memo of correction and show the correct values in A8 and A9 to correct the EC. Please use the comment section to explain what you did. This concludes our training on how to correct an EC. Please be sure to watch our other EC training videos that cover what is considered an error for each section of the EC, along with our 2-part series on general issues. You can find these on our website at crsresources.org/training. Thank you for watching and learning.